Hi, this is Mackenzie Talley for Module 3 of Nonverbal Communication in the class Intro to Communication. I discussed 4 pictures that were given to us, and I demonstrate the different nonverbal communication that each person in the photograph is displaying and what features I see in the picture that show why those features are prevalent to me. The first picture that I chose was of this woman that you see on the left. For her body language, I can tell that she's very proper. You can see at the bottom of the picture that her legs are crossed and that her arms are also crossed and down at her side. You can see that she's sitting straight up and that she's also slightly at an angle that makes it seem like she's very prepared for this picture. You can also see that her neck is straight up as well. If you look at her facial expressions, you kind of have to look closely, but you can tell that she seems a little strained. Her smile isn't very genuine. It doesn't look like she's very relaxed. It almost seems like the smile is forced for the picture. And then if you look at the entire scene around her, you can tell that this is an attempt to be a very formal picture. Obviously, the background isn't very professional. It's kind of wrinkly, and her hair isn't done perfectly. Um, but it's still an attempt to be a professional photograph. You can tell just by her body language, the chair, and the scene that it shows that this was an attempt at a formal photograph of her. For the second photo of this woman, I showed that if you look closely at her facial expressions, she seems very tired and distraught. You can tell that her brow is furrowed, her nose is wrinkled up, and she doesn't seem very happy. Personally, it looks like she just got done with a very hard day's work, or she's possibly on a break. Um, you can also tell based on her her right arm is holding at her back, which demonstrates that she might be in some sort of pain. This could be from the work that she's doing, that she was doing some sort of manual labor, but you could just tell that she's very exhausted and uncomfortable and unhappy. Um, as far as the picture as a whole, you can tell that this picture was taken sort of in the moment. It wasn't planned, it was not formal. Based on the distance between her and the photographer, you can tell that she was probably walking forward, maybe going home or leaving to go on a break from work. For the picture 3, I chose this picture of these 3 ladies. I mainly focused on the one that's closest to the camera. It's very obvious in all 3 of the women's faces that they're very uncomfortable, specifically the main girl that's close up. Her arms are crossed and her hand is kind of facing away from the camera. She's turned at a slight angle, meaning she's not very comfortable with the photographer. Maybe they're saying something to her that she doesn't understand. All of the women look very distraught. The main girl's face, her brow is kind of furrowed, her nose is a little wrinkled up. She just seems very confused, like she's questioning the photographer. If you look at the woman on the right-hand side, she looks like she's been crying or upset. Her brow is going up. It looks like, based on her facial features, that she's been crying. The one on the left looks very annoyed and mad. Not really sure what it could have been, maybe because she doesn't understand if the photographer is saying something to her. Maybe it's something personal, but you can tell, and it could be from her age, that she just looks very rough. Like you can tell that her brow is wrinkled and she has a very straight face. The distance of the picture is, I think, the purpose to captivate the emotions in their faces. You can tell that each woman has been through something. They look like they've been very busy, maybe not the greatest life. Their clothes aren't the most quality. So those are just a couple of the things that I've noticed from this picture. And this is the final photograph that I chose. This young man looks very smug to me. I think based off of his facial features, especially, you can tell that he just looks very satisfied and slightly conceited. He kind of has this grin to him that he looks like he kind of likes to take charge and he was on top of everything. Um, he also looks very relaxed. You can tell with his arm propped up on the equipment next to him and his arm leaning against his hip that you can see that he's very comfortable. You can also tell in his knees as well. They're slightly bent, which also shows that he's somewhat relaxed. As a photograph throughout the whole thing, you can tell that he is very busy. He might be relaxed for the photograph, but you can tell that he does some manual labor just based on his outfit, based on his hat that he's wearing. It looks like it has like a light attached to it, and all of the equipment and the scenery behind him. You can tell that he maybe works in like a railroad or some sort of construction. So you can tell that just based on the different scenery. You can tell he's wearing gloves, he's got this heavy jacket on, he's got something slung around his shoulder, which might be tools, it could be a water canister, it could be various things. But overall, you kind of get a whole understanding of this picture based on mainly his facial features and just his smug personality.